Today we are taking a blast back into the past of Montreal Canadiens trade history. Because just a few years ago, we saw ourselves a trade between the Habs and the Vegas Golden Knights involving a player named Nick that had some serious implications and changed the face of the franchise. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about this trade made on February 24th, 2020, when the Vegas Golden Knights acquired Nick Cousins from Montreal in exchange for a 2021 fourth-round pick. That's right, folks, we are diving into one of the earlier Vegas Golden Knights acquisitions in Nick Cousins, a guy who was a Montreal Canadien and a guy who got sent over in that trade over to Vegas. He played 7 games with the Golden Knights, and he had 3 points, and then he had 17 games played in the Stanley Cup Playoffs for Vegas too. Wait, is that the right trade that we're talking about? Montreal, Vegas, Nick? Yeah, right? That's it. Nope, that's actually not it. I'm sorry, my bad. We are scrolling down here to September 10th, 2018. We're 1, 2, however many days off, but 7 years ago, the Montreal Canadiens and Vegas Golden Knights made this trade, which saw Habs captain Max Pacioretty get sent over to Vegas in exchange for Tomas Tatar, Nick Suzuki, and a 2019 second-round pick. This trade may have changed the face of the franchise for good, and we have to talk about it here. Max Pacioretty, Maximilian Kolenda Pacioretty, was let's just go out there and address it here. He wasn't particularly the most well-received Montreal captain in Canadiens lore. I mean, he was a fine player, 60-point guy, 30-goal guy, reasonably productive, but I think a lot of Canadiens fans, especially fans who watched these 3 years, would jump to the bit and say, yeah, Max Pacioretty might not have actually been the best captain in Canadiens history. In fact, I'd say a lot of them think he's not great. Eventually, there was a dispute, and they needed to get this guy off of that roster. Pacioretty, you could debate whether or not he was actually enjoying his time as the Montreal Canadiens captain, whether or not the pressure was getting to him, whether or not he was treating the media right, and inevitably we all kind of understood that trading this guy was going to happen, which is why when he got sent over to Vegas in exchange for Tomas Tatar, Nick Suzuki, and a second, a lot of Canadiens fans were like, okay, we'll see where this goes, we'll see how these guys are able to produce. Now, interestingly enough, if you take a look at Max Pacioretty and what happened immediately after the trade, he had 40 points in 66 games played in his first year with the Vegas Golden Knights. If you take a look at the guy that Montreal received in the trade that actually became a player right away, it's Tomas Tatar, who was the winger coming back to Montreal and who scored 58 points in 80 games in his first year with the Montreal Canadiens. It's kind of funny that you had Max Pacioretty score, 40 points in 66 games, and Tomas Tatar get 58 points in 80 games in the same season. Montreal essentially got the exact same production that they were seeing out of Pacioretty in Tomas Tatar in that very first year. And Tatar then continued to produce a little bit more. He had 61 points in 68 games with Montreal in 2019-20, under a point per game. And then he found himself getting 30 points in 50 games the year after that. It wasn't a long-lived tenure with the Canadiens for Tomas Tatar, but it was a very well-appreciated one, as he was a top-line player and a very solid all-around hockey player. The fact is, though, his production was almost the same as what Pacioretty was getting for a short while, so there's already some extra value the Canadiens got. Not to mention the second-round pick and Nick Suzuki, who was a prospect at the time. Now, for Max Pacioretty, things inevitably faded away out of Vegas. There were some health complications, and he went from a consistent 60-point guy to being over a point per game and then inevitably phasing out because he couldn't play games. Inevitably, he went over to Carolina, Washington, and then Toronto, and now he is without a contract. Who knows what the future has in store for Max Pacioretty, but if you take a look at what the Canadiens got in return, I think everybody can acknowledge just how fantastic this return was. Not because the 2019 second-round pick is amazing. The Canadiens sent that away to LA, I believe it was, to draft Mattias Norlinder, who didn't really become anything for the Montreal Canadiens, at least anything substantial. He had 6 games played. But the biggest piece that Montreal received in the trade, of course, it goes without saying, it is Nick Suzuki. 26 years old, 5'11", 207 pounds, a right-handed guy. He was the second ever draft pick by the Vegas Golden Knights. Cody Glass was number 1, 6th overall in 2017. Nick Suzuki was number 2, 13th overall in 2017. And then Eric Bronstrom was 3rd, 15th overall in 2017 as well. So all these 3 guys were selected by Vegas in their very first NHL entry draft. Nick Suzuki was the prize that Montreal received. Now, as the tale goes, Montreal actually wanted Cody Glass in this Pacioretty trade from all those years ago, only for the Golden Knights to say, no, sorry, we're not trading you Glass, we like that guy too much, we think he's too good, we'll give you Nick Suzuki instead, how about that? Inevitably, Marc Bergevin and the Canadiens said yes. Nick Suzuki was traded to Montreal at the end of 2018, and then we saw Suzuki pop off. He had some crazy production in the Owen Sound attack system the year after as the captain, eventually made the Montreal Canadiens, getting 41 points in his rookie season, and then was a key contributor as the Canadiens made the Stanley Cup Finals in 2021. 16 points in 22 games played as a second-year NHL player. Nick Suzuki eventually became a consistent 60, 70, 80, maybe even 90-point caliber guy, as this previous year he had 30 goals and 59 assists. He did this all in 82 games played, and Suzuki now is the best forward on the Montreal Canadiens. He's got skill, he's slick, he's got defensive acumen, he's got a blistering shot, he plays the game the right way, he understands everything he needs to do, he doesn't take any shortcuts, he doesn't take any days off. Nick Suzuki is amazing, everybody, and this is the guy who, as the new captain for Montreal, almost poetically found himself in Montreal in the first place because the Habs traded away their captain of yesteryear to the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, as for the other assets, Tomas Tatar, he ended up going to New Jersey. He found himself in Colorado, Seattle, back to New Jersey, before starting things out with EV Zug in the Swiss League. Yeah, that's right, Tomas Tatar is now actually playing games in Switzerland. The other assets, Mattias Norlinder, he's also in Europe, so the 2 players that Montreal got that weren't Nick Suzuki in this trade, no longer a part of the organization. Max Pacioretty, we already know he's not in Vegas anymore, but Nick Suzuki, taking a look at what he is as Montreal's captain right now, and what Pacioretty was 7 years ago, it's a night and day difference, man. Totally different level of competitiveness, level of production, level of fanfare. Not that folks didn't love Max Pacioretty when he was a part of the Canadiens. It's just, I think as a captain, he left a lot more to be desired. Meanwhile, Nick Suzuki is stepping up in all the ways you want a captain to, in terms of his leadership, in terms of his mentorship, in terms of how good he is and how responsible he is on the ice. This was a magnificent trade from 7 years ago. And we keep on making videos about it yearly because it happens to be a very nice birth date, September 10th, 2018, when Montreal changed their direction entirely, with Nick Suzuki getting brought into the fold. With all this in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this trade 7 years later? And what are your thoughts on Nick Suzuki's development as Montreal's captain? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.